and welcome to this episode of Counterpoint. We are here on the verge of deciding who our next panchayat and sarpanchas are going to be in about 186 panchayats all over Goa. It is going to be another exercise, so to speak, in strengthening the arms of local self-government and giving power to the people to decide on their destinies as far as their wards and their villages are concerned. And at this point of time, we should all be happy that the process is taking place at all after a lot of hiccups and roadblocks on the way. Most of it orchestrated and dictated by the government of the day, which for various known and unknown reasons wanted to postpone it. But we've had a lot of discussions around that. But today I think we move a little ahead, since the elections are actually taking place, to introspect and ask ourselves whether the true spirit of the 73rd Amendment of the Constitution enacted in 92-93, where we gave to ourselves, after giving it to ourselves a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, we gave to ourselves a very key element of local self-governments and people at the grassroots determining their destiny by the way they voted at that level. To discuss whether we have achieved that or not, and whether this entire exercise has now become reduced to a farcical game of MLAs and others playing their political part and controlling panchayats so that they ultimately become stepping stones for their political future or not. So the issue is that have we reduced our panchayat bodies only to that? We will speak of all this and more, and like to introduce to you a very esteemed panel of people who've been there and done that and know exactly what we are talking about, and will throw a lot of light into this issue. On my left is Sauter D'Souza, a very prominent journalist, columnist, and somebody who has worked with the grassroots movements in a very, very deep manner and understands this more than most people in Goa. Next to him is Mohandas Loinkarbab. He of course is with the Goa Forward Party, but more importantly, he is here also in his capacity as somebody who's been a sarpanch for a long time and understands panchayat politics deeply. He comes from Lolye. And last but not the least, Kalanand Mani of the Peaceful Society, who has of course been here many times and has made us wiser with a lot of his thoughts, especially in terms of local self-governance and stuff like that we are talking about. I'll start with Sauter. Sauter, I have no further questions. I just ask you to kind of take forward some of my points and elaborate on them.
Yeah, the first thing I must confess, that I'm not as seasoned a politician and activist as my co-panelists here. So, and basically I have been sort of a barefoot person, never confined myself to mainstream idea of politics. I come from a time in the old panchayat system and after the 73rd Amendment. So right from 1975, as a young person of 15-16 years, because my father also was in sarpanch of the village and in politics.
Right.
And somehow as young teenagers, the panchayat, our panchayat was that time the only panchayat in Goa to have an indoor badminton court and table tennis tables and everything, which was given by then Chief Minister Dayanand Badorkar. And during the monsoons, that was the place the whole state is to come for what you call the state level tournaments.
Right.
In Goa.
Right.
These indoor stadiums and all came up afterwards. And I saw how that politics crumbled and the dirty politics slowly crept in somewhere in the late 80s to the 90s.
Right.
Before that, the sarpanchas and even the panchayat secretaries, the talatis, were so open people. You could go and sit and talk to them, and maybe you could meet, even get sign of the sarpanch at the bus stand or somewhere where he's gone.
Right.
So that was the ease with which people, the interaction between
The community system,
elected,
close-knit
yes,
community system. Yes, yes.
and they knew each other, and there was never this ego
Right.
in the panchayats as we see now, and this competition, or and this almost cutthroat competition that is happening now. There was some hope between 2004 to 2009 when Union Minister Manishankar Iyer, he really started pushing for this decentralization.
Right.
But that dream today, I don't know. Seeing the total hostility towards federalism,
Yes,
and how now even panchayats are under a threat when the state government itself is not being respected.
Right.
I don't see how the panchayats are going to be respected. So that is my position right today.
Right. Mohandas Bab, you have of course seen it all, governed panchayats for a long time. A couple of interesting points that Soto also made. It is just that, see, what has happened is initially, and when we were also young, and even before that, even before we understood 73rd Amendment, we used to hear this word that Kalanba bill also bear me out. It used to be spoken more in the Hindi heartland, कि पंचायती कर रहे हो. Meaning in the sense that are you sitting down and so what happens is the role of the panchayat and panchayati, okay, which means the system of governing happened. People used to respect that institution in whatever way. So at one point of time, at some level, don't you actually think that the simpler way was a more honest way? Yeah. And right now, when we are actually armed with a lot of powers, those powers have actually been misused completely, and we have been reduced to this farce.
No, misuse कशें आसा की better I will speak Konkani.
Sure.
I am in 90s I was a sarpanch.
Right.
Before my background was I am a student leader. आणि तेन्ना आमी भुरगे आशिल्ले. आमी पंचायतीक गेले. 73 and 74 अमेंडमेंट म्हणजे परस गोंयाक जेन्ना पंचायत राज एक्ट आयलो तेन्ना म्हाका याद जाता त्या प्रमाणे अशें की सरपंच हो डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम विलेज इलेक्ट करपाचें एक प्रोसिजर करया म्हणटाले. बट पॉलिटिशियन ऑब्जेक्टेड बिकॉज सरपंच डायरेक्टली इलेक्ट करतालो टोटल विलेज विदाउट एनी पंचासें. तर कसं तशें सरपंच वूड बी पावरफूल जाता. सो ही इज बियॉन्ड कंट्रोल ऑफ द MLAs. सो तेन्नाचे वासुपाय गांवकार मिनिस्टर आशिल्लो आनी काँग्रेसीचें सरकार आशिल्लें. बट दे रिजेक्टेड आनी तांणी ही सिस्टम हाडली जी आतां सिस्टम आहा. पंच हॅज टू इलेक्ट सरपंच. सो पंच इलेक्ट सरपंच म्हणजे सरपंचाक पंचायतच्या जे पंच आसात वेदर दे करप्ट हॉनेस्ट वॉट एवर तांकां सांबाळून घेवन काम करपाक जाय. सेकंडली कशें आहा की विलेजीक करप्शनाक जो चान्स दिता तो गव्हर्मेंट दिता. वेन आय वॉज सरपंच आनी म्हाका दिसता पिसफूल सोसायटीनी एक म्हाजे वेळार एक हें केलें विनायक नायक बी आशिल्ले की एक परिसंवाद सिंपोजियम घेतिल्लो. तेन्ना हांवें सांगिल्लें की लोकांक घर बांदपाक जाय. एक फॅमिलीक 4 लोक आसात, 4 भाव आसात. 4 भावांक जेन्ना एक ल्हान घर पावना तेन्ना ताका दुसरें घर बांदपाक जाय. आतां दुसरें घर बांदता जाल्यार इतली कटकटी आसा. आतां तर इतली कटकटी आहात. सो एवरीबडी गोज फॉर इल्लिगल कन्स्ट्रक्शन. टावन प्लॅनिंगाक वचपा जाय किंवा कन्वर्शनाक वचपा जाय, सनद घेवपा जाय, त्यो सगळ्यो गांवांत त्यो जावंक शकनात. आनी गांवांक पर्टिक्युलरली प्रायवेट फॉरेस्ट वेन CRZ एवरीथींग इज. सो नॅचरली ही गोज फॉर इल्लिगल कन्स्ट्रक्शन. आतां इल्लिगल कन्स्ट्रक्शन जातकीर बेनिफीट कोणाक? इल्लिगल कन्स्ट्रक्शन जातकीर बेनिफीट इज फॉर द पंच ऑर ए सेक्रेटरी ऑर ए BDO. कित्याक तर तो सगळो रेव्हेन्यू बुडयता. आतांय पयर मोविन गुदिनान एक स्टेटमेंट केलो की सगळ्यांक नंबर दियात. ओके, नंबर दिया, ओके, प्रॉब्लेम ना. कित्याक लोकांक त्रास जावपा जायना, लोकांक इल्लिगल येना. बट विथ फॉर्मेलिटी हितून गव्हर्मेंटाचो तुमी रेव्हेन्यू बुडयतात. हांवें तेन्ना एक सजेस्ट केल्लें की विलेज लेवलाचेर एक अशी कमिटी उरपाक जाय. कित्याक 73 and 74 अमेंडमेंट येतरेर जर गांवच्या लोकांनी पंचायत चलोवपाची तर अशें एक हें उरपाक जाय की टावन प्लॅनिंगाचो मनीस, मामलेदार, BDO आनी पंच एक कोणाली घराची फायल आयली थंय सॉर्ट आउट जातली वेदर इट इज इको झोन आसा कितें. बट गव्हर्मेंटाक तें इतली सिंप्लिफिकेशन करप नाका. गव्हर्मेंटाक तें कंट्रोल करपाक जाय, सेंट्रलायज करपाक जाय. सो सेंट्रलायज करता कितें जाता, आतां प्रत्येक कडेन जे नंबर दिता पळय, जे मोविन गुदिनोन सांगलें नंबरींग, एटलिस्ट मिनिमम 10,000 रुपीज घेतल्या शिवाय कोणाक नंबर दिनात.
ओनली फॉर दॅट,
ओनली फॉर नंबर. दिस नॉट लिगल. नंबर दिलो म्हण लिगल जायना घर. यू गेट लायट एनीथींग, बट घर इल्लिगल उरता. बट तुका एक सॅटिस्फॅक्शन, म्हाका नंबर आहा, केन्ना फोन केला आय एम नंबर. सो त्या नंबराक पयशे घेतात, पंच पयशे घेतात, सेक्रेटरी पयशे घेता किंवा तांकां बिडिओ वता किंवा आनी हें सगळें कित्याक जाता की गव्हर्मेंटाचो फ्लेक्सिबल हें ना. गव्हर्मेंट एक चिंतना की पंचायत राज गांवच्या लोकांक फॅसिलिटी मेळपाक जाय, तें मेळना म्हण हें जाता. आनी करप्शन जेन्ना जाता आनी हें जाता पयशे म्हण येता म्हण कळटा तेन्ना ऑटोमॅटिकली कॉम्पिटिशन वाडटा. प्रत्येकाक दिसता की आपूण इलेक्ट जावचो आनी विथीन 5 years आपल्यान पयशे करचे. दॅट इज अ प्रॉब्लेम. सो हाजेर सोल्युशन उरपा जाय की 73-74 एमेंडमेंटाचेर दुसरे 73-74 एमेंडमेंटाचेर सांगता की ग्रामसभा इज अ फायनल म्हणटात. आतां ग्रामसभा जर फायनल जाता तर प्रॉब्लेम कितें जाता. हांव एक एग्जाम्पल दितां ग्रामसभेचें आनी मागीर बंद करता. एक हॉटेल प्रोजेक्ट येवपाचो आशिल्लो एक खंयच्या तरी पंचायतीक. त्या पंचायतीक त्या हॉटेल ओनरान कितें केलें की गांवच्या कांय युथांक टेम्पररी एम्प्लॉयमेंट दिलो. बुश कटींग हें तें गार्डन. आनी ग्रामसभेक ज्या दिसता गेलो तो प्रोजेक्ट येवपा आशिल्लो त्या दीस त्या सगळ्यांक सांगलें की आमचे फॉर उलयले जाल्यार तुमकां नोकरी मेळटल्यो. आनी ग्रामसभा वॉज हायजॅक्ड ऑलमोस्ट. ग्रामसभा हायजॅक. सो 73-74 एमेंडमेंटाचो जो कितें ग्रामसभेन करपाचो पळय तो इश्यूच गेलो आनी मागीर ताणें ताका काडलें. तागेलो प्रॉब्लेम सॉल्व जालो, ताका पास जालो. ताणें म्हणलें की तुमी नाका आमकां काम ना आतां. That is the problem.
Kalbab, as Mohandas Babu was saying, and the issue is that his whole hijacking which he is speaking about, the whole hijacking that has been taken over and politicians have taken over. But the point is, weren't there enough safeguards in the 73rd Amendment against something like this happening? And didn't we see that this could happen and weren't there any safeguards being taken at that point of time?
The village India is still not finding a space in urban India. And this struggle or this dominance of urban India or industrial India over the village India is going on for last 100 plus years. I remember that in 1919, when the British were preparing the set of law for Indians with the view to give some space for Indian to take part in their governance, at that time the Indian National Congress was demanding village panchayats in India along with the municipalities in India. And we know that Lord Ripon brought the whole concept of municipalities in India. Thereafter, the biggest legal reforms took place in 1935, and even at that time, panchayats, this panchayat means that time nearly 83% of India was not recognized by the people who were designing the power for India. And thereafter,
this is you are talking of which year? This
1935.
35. Okay.
And thereafter, we had our own time of visualizing, drafting, and confirming the constitution for India. And even at that time, because we are celebrating 75 years of independence, and the issue before the activists like us is whether our villages are really independent in that sense. Because when the constitution drafting was going on, there was no debate about how we are going to ensure the participation of nearly say 83% of India in the affairs of the governance of this country. That was not at all matter of debate. Whether he is a constitutional advisor of the Constitutional Assembly, panchayats was never in a debate. Only somewhere on 16th or 18th of January 1948, when Mahatma Gandhi was asked by a journalist that, Bapu, do you know that your darling village panchayat is missing from the entire deliberation of the Indian Constitution? And Gandhiji said that, yes, I must confess that I was not able to follow the proceedings of Indian Constitution Assembly, but if they are not considering village panchayat as a unit of self-reliance and self-governance, then it is the biggest mistake, and I am not going to accept any constitution which does not give the maximum power to the panchayats. And so remember the line, I am not going to accept any constitution which does not give the maximum power to the village panchayat. And for him, village panchayat was not the village of that time, which was dominated by the caste hierarchy and the class hierarchy. His concept of village was much different, liberal, equal, based on all forms of equality. Unfortunately,
But geographically speaking, the same kind of size.
same kind of size,
Yes.
but with a different culture and character. Unfortunately, people did not devote time to understand what Gandhi was saying about the village, what saying about the governance, and why the participation of the village community was required to shape the democratic character and culture of this country. And thereafter, somewhere when Gandhiji was murdered,
Yes.
some emotion erupted, not only all over the country, but also in the Constitution Assembly. And then, just to pay him tribute, people started debating about how we can pay our respect to departed soul. Then say, okay, village panchayat is the one.
But just to kind of not
Right.
interrupt, just I wanted to make a point. But however, whatever said and done at that point of time, it may have been a lapse, but there was no ill intention to usurp power directly.
No, there was ill intention.
There was.
There was ill intention because the kind of debate forwarded by two leaders, they made extremely objectionable and insulting remark about the village and village panchayat. That reveals that they did not understood what the village is and why the participation of the village community requires in for their own development as well, and how you can bring large number of population in the affair of the democracy. I will just conclude here.
Yes, sure.
It took nearly 35 years, 4 or 5 commissions to reach out to 73rd Amendment. 73rd Amendment also came with one kind of realization that the money which coming from the top is not reaching the bottom.
Right.
For the Gandhi village panchayat, which was forwarded by Jayaprakash Narayan further, for them the money should travel from down to top, not from top to down. When money travels from top to down, the evils also travel from top to down. When money travels from bottom to up, then aspiration of the bottom also travel from bottom to top.
Which is not happening.
So that was the classic character of the panchayat, envisaged by Gandhi and then later on forwarded by Jayaprakash Narayan, which never happened. 73rd Amendment, 72 and 73rd Amendment created a new hope that the village republic, a village democracy may come into practice after 35 years of Indian Constitution. Unfortunately, as state behaving since 1948 or say 1950, state is not ready to share the power, share the responsibility, and recognizing the village community as a responsible community for this country, and therefore they keep on imposing their policy, their programs, their greed on the village life, village economy, and therefore they kept on grabbing the space of the village democracy in this country, and therefore the slogan of the 73rd Amendment, which was the power to the powerless, is totally defeated now.
Good points.
Just
Sort
want
of.
to add one more
Sure.
thing. The 73rd Amendment we see now is a diluted version from the original draft it was put.
Can you explain why?
Because there were a lot of debates and here the MPs were objecting.
Right.
Okay, basically to those powers given, and then finally to appease everyone and get it passed in Parliament, sort of dilution was done just to get it passed. So a lot of the original intentions were lost out.
Two quick points based on what Kalan Bab just said. See, two things. One is that the state is not willing to share power. The other aspect, sort of, I'd like you to draw your attention to, is this whole devolution of both powers, financial and political, both. The issue is, if you can just talk a little bit about whether that devolution has happened in the right place and how was it envisaged and what it has become. Because right now, my point is no development funds come directly to panchayats anymore. They are literally powerless. So, and they are completely dependent on the largesse of the MLA or the minister or the super chief minister or chief minister, whoever be the case. So which actually means now a Raja and a Praja situation has arrived, rather than being, rather than the grassroots people being the Rajas.
Yeah.
Such.
So
I'll take your point of view also.
yeah, basically till today, those 29 functions that are there, powers have not been devolved.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And very cleverly,
Yes.
the state government has what you call that divided those devolution into what are called consultative powers,
Yes.
financial powers.
Mm-hmm.
They have given the consultative powers to the panchayat,
Right.
but financial powers are kept with the minister.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this is the present situation.
Mm-hmm.
There is parallel governance going on in the sense that on all the 29 powers,
Right.
okay, there is a state government, the director of particular departments,
Yes.
agriculture or village industry.
Yes.
So that is controlled by the state government.
Correct.
So the sarpanch has to go to the director who is controlled by the minister,
Right. 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 Absolutely.
and they call that devolution.
That's true.
So
Correct.
that's not devolution.
Correct. Correct. Mundhar, I'll go to you in 2 minutes. Let me just introduce Naren Savekar, former MP and a senior BJP leader who's here with us. Thank you so much, Naren, for making it. I'll just ask you just one question for you to speak first, and then I'll go to Mundhar. See, the whole discussion that we're having here is essentially to look at whether the spirit of the 73rd Amendment over the years is actually visible in the grassroots or not. In the sense that in the today's panchayat system, do we actually see the spirit of the 73rd Amendment working out, or has it been converted, or has the panchayat system across political lines been converted into a anytime vote bank for politicians who are using panchayats to for their political benefits? That is essentially what the debate is all about. So just like to have your quick views on this premise.
You see, the 73rd Amendment, which has been enacted in the Constitution, it has been implemented in letter and spirit throughout. So far as Goa is concerned, there are 191 panchayats which are in Goa, and all those panchayats, barring some few of them, they are going to polls right now. Now, in all these panchayat elections, if you go through the candidates who are contesting the elections, we will find that all the candidates, they are from various stratas. They are maybe some of them are educated, some of them may be literate, some of them may not be literate. But in spite of that, considering the fact that they have a popular vote base in their particular ward, they have been contesting the elections. So, in my opinion, the 73rd Amendment, except for some issues that have been raised by Sauter, that can be debated always, but the people's participation, the whole idea of the 73rd Amendment was to have a people's participation at the grassroots level. And in fact, we have been seeing it in Goa right now.
See, the people's participation is fine, but do you also agree that the point is, we are not only talking about the last 10 years. If you look at the period, let's look at the period from 90 onwards, okay, especially during the later 90s. Would you agree that what happens here is that rather than the choice of leadership coming completely from the people, what is being increasingly seen now over the years is that ultimately MLAs, irrespective of whether they are on political lines or not, MLAs are fielding panels, they are fielding panchayats to contest, they are having a great say over who becomes the sarpanch. The money is also flowing in from particular MLAs and ministers. Now the issue is, when that happens, then the side effect of this is that when money is being pumped in this kind of a manner, then money also needs to be recovered, because of which there's so much of corruption happening in the panchayats now.
No, see, first of all, we should try to understand that in all the panchayats, those who are contesting the elections, in every ward, irrespective of whether the local MLA or the minister, whosoever is supporting him or not, irrespective of that, people have their own choices. So there are people who are ardent supporters of the local MLA, but at the same time they are contesting the elections. That's because they go to the people, because they have their own voter base down the line. So therefore, irrespective whether the local MLA supports them or not, whether the minister supports them or not, they go to the polls. And we have been seeing many a times it so happens that a minister or MLA may have somebody in his mind, but irrespective of that, some other person has been elected by the people. So that's the beauty of this democracy. So
okay. Mundhar, I wanted to react a little bit to what Sauter said. The question essentially was that the spirit of the 73rd Amendment in letter and spirit, how far has that been achieved?
हांव फक्त सांगता की नरेंद्र बाबान जे उलयलो की 73 अमेंडमेंट जातरीर जे पंचायतीचे इलेक्शन बिफोर 73 अमेंडमेंटूय आसताली. सो पंचायतीक इलेक्ट जावपी लोक इलिटरेट एज्युकेटेड वॉट एवर बिफोर 73 अमेंडमेंट आशिल्लेच. 73 अमेंडमेंट जातरी अशें दिशिल्लें की फायनान्शियल पॉवर वाडटलें म्हण. फायनान्स कमिशन जातलें. फायनान्स कमिशन सगळ्याक पयशे दितलो म्हण. प्रॉब्लेम कितें जालो की खंयच पयसो आयलो ना. फायनान्स कमिशन आतां तुमी पयलीं जें सांगलें तशें की मिनिस्टराक मेळपा जाय, ऑफिसराक मेळपा जाय. हांव तुजें एक एग्जांपल दितां. लोलये पंचायत वीच आय वॉज रिप्रेझेंटेटिव्ह सरपंच म्हूण आशिल्लो. पेट्रोल पंपाचेर वॉकट्राय लागतालो आनी पंचायतीक रायट आशिल्लो ती वॉकट्राय कलेक्ट करपाचो. आनी पंचायत एज पर हे पंचायत 1% वर 2% दिस डिपेंड्स पंचायत ऑक्ट्राय कलेक्ट करतालो. ऑक्ट्राय डायरेक्ट पेट्रोलियम कंपनी डायरेक्ट पंचायतीक धाडटालो. थंय इंटरफियरन्स गव्हर्मेंटाचो नाशिल्लो. जितलो सेल त्या पंचायतीक जाता ताजो. आनी त्या देखून लोली पंचायत काणकोण पंचायतीक इज द रिचेस्ट पंचायत म्हण आशिल्ली. BJPचें गव्हर्मेंट येतरीर जेन्ना मनोहर पर्रीकार चीफ मिनिस्टर जालो तेन्ना तो रायट काडून घेतलो. आनी ताणें सांगलें सगळी पेट्रोलियम कंपनी की जो ऑक्ट्राय आहा तो तुमी पंचायतीक दिवपाचो ना, तो आपल्या कडेन येवपाक जाय, गव्हर्मेंटाक येवपाचो, गव्हर्मेंट डिस्ट्रिब्यूट करतलो. सो सेंट्रलायज परत हांगा स्टार्ट जालें. जे 73 आनी 74 अमेंडमेंट म्हणटाले की पॉवर टू द पीपल, पॉवर टू द पंचास, पॉवर टू द सरपंचा. रिवर्स जालो की जो सेल्फ सफिशियंट पंचायत आशिल्ल्यो तांचो पॉवरच काडून घेतलो. फायनान्शियल प्रॉब्लेम कितें की फायनान्शियल एक फावटी पॉवर काडून घेतलो की यू आर हँडिकॅप. तुवें गव्हर्मेंटा कडेन पांय पडपाक जाय. सेकंडली सांगता सुलभ टॉयलेट, सुलभ शौचालय टॉयलेट. सादें एग्जांपल सुलभ शौचालय. MLAन सायन मारले शिवाय BDO तुका पास करना सुलभ शौचालय टॉयलेट. सो पंचान कितें करपाक जाय किंवा सरपंचान तें लिस्ट घेवन MLA म्हऱ्या वचूं. सो सेंट्रलायज हें परत सेंट्रलायज. सो एवरी स्कीम लायक दॅट ओन्ली. तूं खंयची हाजी स्कीम घे थंय MLAचो इंटरफियरन्स आसता. गरज ना. दुसरी सांगता हांव आतां खंयच्याय पंचायतीक किंवा विलेज पंचायतीक रोड करपा जाय. रोड करतले पंचायतीन एक रेजोल्युशन जर धाडत की हांगा रोड जाय बिकॉज सेल्फ सफिशियंट पंचायत 73 पब्लिके कडेन सगळें आहा. सो ग्रामसभेन ठरयलें की ह्या एरियेक रोड जाय म्हण. रोड मेळना. MLA हॅज टू गिव प्रायोरिटी. अरे जर पंचायत प्रायोरिटी दिता, पंचायत जर सांगता तुमकां जर दिसता की पंचायती कडेन पॉवर येवपा जाय तर MLAची प्रायोरिटी कित्याक लागता? सो MLAची प्रायोरिटी. सो एवरीवेअर गव्हर्मेंट आनी MLAचो इंटरफियरन्स आहा. आतां तेतूंत रुलींग आनी मागीर ऑपोजिशन हे दोनी आहा. रुलींग आसलेलें चड जाता पण अदरवायज MLAची प्रायोरिटी नासतना खंयचोच विलेज रोड कंस्ट्रक्शन जायना.
Okay, I'll take the last topic before we go for a break. Then we'll go into other issues. One is this whole devolution of powers and financial management of Panchayat, which we've referred to, but since Nayan Baba is also here, we'll elaborate on that further. See, in that 73rd amendment, when this whole grassroots kind of development was envisaged, one of the powers that was supposed to be given to all the panchayats was also financial independence and financial powers, where the money would flow in such a way that people, the grassroots, would have power to decide on their budgets and finances and so on and so forth. To what extent has that been achieved? Taking off from what Mohandas Papi is saying, I'll ask Naren Babu also the same question.
It's in fact in a reverse order. Before 73rd amendment, as Mohandas Bab said very rightly, the panchayat had a wider options to decide about the taxation. Growingly, the options about deciding the taxation has become so limited, limited.
Right.
And the panchayat is largely, or panchayats are largely compelled to depend on the state and the center schemes. That should not happen. Because when for financial reasons you are depending on some other system, then you also compromise with your kind of freedom which one system should have. And that today we see that panchayat is a system of not of the Gram Sabha or people of the panchayat. Panchayat is a system of the implementing only the government schemes. And therefore, since the flow of government schemes and the flow of big projects have come into the panchayat area, the quality of the governance and quality of the panchayat is also deteriorated a lot. So in that manner, that is also defeated. But I have 2-3 other issues. See what was the main mandate of the 73rd amendment? The first amendment was to have election at every 5 years, and that is every time the state government is compromising with that. Second amendment was, which was the very revolutionary in the Indian history, of empowering the women by giving them at least 33% of reservation. It never happened in the whole history of India, which happened in the 73rd Amendment. But today you see what kind of empowerment has taken place among the women folk in Goa. In state assembly, you hardly find one or two women, and how they come to the state assembly, that's we all know. If the women were really empowered, what was the objective of the 73rd Amendment, through village panchayat, today we could have seen a different kind of gender equality or gender empowerment in the state like Goa, which is not happening. And what we find, very ugly scenario we find in panchayat, it is not the woman who is ruling on the sarpanch post or panch post. Her role is played by the husband. That is the insult to the constitution, insult to the cultural right of the women.
I remember in North India there is this whole term called Panchayat Pati.
Panchayat Pati, yeah. They call SP in Gujarat.
Yes.
SP means Sarpanch Pati.
Yes.
Sarpanch Pati. This is very sad in a state like Goa. Third was, also the empowering scheduled castes and scheduled tribes through the political process in panchayats. Just by giving numbers does not give empowerment.
Okay.
I think Goa had a possibility and still have a possibility of becoming quite an ideal state in terms of empowering the women and scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. These were the main things.
Okay.
Last one was the Finance Commission.
Yes.
And so far, I think 2 Finance Commission came in, was there for Panchayati Raj, and I don't have information. I think whatever information I have, government has not yet accepted the recommendation of the Finance Commission.
Okay.
And Finance Commission is a part of the 73rd Amendment. It has nothing to do with the formation of the states.
Okay, I'll just get Naren Babu to them. A couple of questions. One is this whole devolution of financial power. See, you have the MP lad scheme, you have the MLA scheme, and a lot of this money is also utilized in the panchayat areas, as you would know very well. My point is, do the panchayats have the right to prepare their own budgets, generate their own income? My issue is that ultimately grassroots development would mean that they become financially sufficient. A, where do you feel success has been achieved, and where do you feel there's a big gap that needs to be filled?
See, so far as the devolution of powers is concerned, financial powers is concerned, we may have our own opinion about it, because as Sauter said, or as Mohandas also said, he being the sarpanch also of a local panchayat down there. So far as the see, Goa is a very small state. You have the panchayats wherein the population is around 16,000, and wherein there are panchayats wherein the population is around 4,000, 5,000 also. Like if I can mention Kelchi panchayat in Kortalim constituency, right? Wherein the population is around 1,800. Now, except for some part of the IDC down there, IDC in Verna, except for that, they don't have any other power so far as the financial powers is concerned. Now, there was so therefore, when we think about the financial powers, now he said that octroi was taken away from the panchayats. Now, let me put it like this. See, octroi was collected by the panchayats and the panchayats were utilizing it. Now, the government then in its own wisdom thought that let it come to the central pool, and from then they will give it to the panchayats. Now, this is one part of it. But so far as the panchayats are concerned, now they prepare their own budget, they prepare their own estimates. Now, the issue that was raised by him was, no, you have to, for every time you have to run to you have to knock the doors of the local MLA or the minister and take his priority. Now, when panchayat sits, they prepare so many plans, because those panchayat members also, they have their own priorities. So, they may say, anga rasto jai, the rasto jai, ye jai, te jai. But at the same time, when all these things are taken into consideration, you find that there are some priorities which are required to be done first, and then everything will follow later. So, in that case also, you require the support of the government. That's the reason why these people, they have to be in good books with or otherwise they have to approach the MLAs or the concerned ministers. So, in my opinion, if you see that the Finance Commission, we say that no, the financial power should be devolved to the local panchayats. That is fine, but at the same time, we should also take into consideration their financial capacity, their financial availability, or whatever the revenue that is available for each panchayat. आणि आम्ही जर गोंयचो विचार करीत मोहनदास बाब तुवें जर पळयलां आसतलें की कांय पंचायतींनी तर परिस्थिती अशी आसा की तुका जर सपोर्ट करून जाल्यार ती पंचायत रन करप सुद्दां कठीण आसा. सो 191 पंचायती भितर अश्यो कांय पंचायत आसतल्यो की ज्या पंचायतींनी हें करप. सो देरफॉर हें सगळें एका हेजेर हाडपा खातीरूच खरें म्हणजे हो विशय तेन्ना सरकारान त्याच्या संदर्भांतलो डिसिजन घेतिल्लो. सो म्हजें मत अशें आसा की गोंयचो आमी जर विचार करीत जाल्यार गोंयान खरें म्हणजे आतां कलान बाबान सांगलें एक गजाल. लेट मी जस्ट पुट इट आउट. आय एम नॉट रिएक्टिंग टू वॉट ही सेड बट आय एम जस्ट सेईंग की सरपंचपति you said, na, SP or whatever it is. But you must have realized in Rajasthan, there are, I have come across this was published in the newspapers also, की थोड्यांनी थंयचो आपलो बरो फॉरेनांतलो जॉब सोडून कोणी IAS कोणी IPS जॉब सोडून सुद्दां सरपंच म्हणून लोकल थंय त्यांनी आपले हें केल्लें आसा आनी काम करतात. गोंयान सुद्दां देर आर सम पंचायत्स वेरीन दोज लेडीज दे हॅव टू कम फॉरवर्ड and they have no, we don't want this bar, we don't want these illegalities to go in our panchayat. That is what they have done. So therefore we can't say no, since the powers have been given, since the Mahilas get elected, so therefore their husbands they run the panchayat or manage the panchayat affairs. So that is wrong to say that.
But it's been happening, isn't it? Yeah, sure.
Also,
Okay.
just correct.
Yeah.
Because Savikar Bab has said that IDC in KLC in 2001. All the industrial estates have been removed from the purview of the panchayats. So there also their finances were chopped, and there was a strong reaction from Kortalim panchayat and all that. So also till today, as per the 73rd amendment, every district has to have district development plans. Okay, district planning commissions have been appointed. But there are no district plans till today. Okay, and a district plan means
no DDPs, district development.
District development plans.
Yes.
Till today, nothing. This is there. Another thing is,
but I think that issue is also before the High Court. If I'm
no, nothing is before the High Court.
It was.
There is before the High Court because they are killing flies there. So they were saying that give us work.
I don't know,
yeah.
but
So
that issue came up.
That is the thing. They are gone saying that give us the powers to make the plans. Okay, and everywhere the government has put parallel this thing. And initially even the building regulations to 1975, 72 were applicable. Yeah. In 2010 they have removed that and given all the building powers to the TCP. Okay, the TCP is a parallel. This the Director of Agriculture is running parallel. Director of Infrastructure Development is parallel. So everything 29 which come with the 29 powers are at the mercy of the directorates which are under the control of the
quick point before
ministers.
I take a break. See, the thing is, the issue at hand, let's look at the issue at hand and the solution that we can do. See, the issue at hand is that can we give budgets to different panchayats, let them come up with the amount that they need, let a proper budgetary plan happen, let them run like an assembly or a parliament or whatever, let them be masters of their own financial planning, and amount can be given directly by the state government straight to every panchayat, and let them run their affairs the way they want. If that happens, then they can be empowered to do their nala work, to do their greenery and seed spraying and so on and so forth, and that gives them actual empowerment. I mean, my issue is that why aren't political dispensations across political lines thinking about this? Quick word from you and then we'll take a break.
No, I think so far as that is concerned, it would since I hold a position in the government as an NRI commissioner and there is model code of conduct, I won't say that anything, I don't want to add anything to that. But I think...
But you don't disagree with what I'm saying?
See, what I'm saying is, across the political lines, irrespective, whichever political party comes to power, irrespective, they should sit together and they should, all the minds should meet together and they should decide, this is what should be done, this should not be done.
Right.
Now, when we blame X, at the same time, we should also blame Y. Because irrespective, whether A is in power or B is in power, it has been the same thing. Right. So, therefore, the very, in my opinion, the crux of the matter is, since Goa is a very small place and a very small state, so that's the reason why at the same time the 15 lakh population, 10 lakh voters, and every panchayat has got a voter base of around some thousands in numbers.
Yes.
So therefore, in some cases, you feel that there is a parallel administration which is going on. One. Secondly, but at the same time, I think Sauter should also agree with this. The powers, since the people are aware of their own powers at the panchayat level, now all the gram sabhas or otherwise in the panchayat meetings which are being held, therein the people's participation, one can't deny the fact that there is no people's participation, there is people's participation down the line. So therefore the people are aware of their powers and the rights also. So we should in fact appreciate that the 73rd amendment, so far as Goa is concerned, has been brought into force, and the people are in fact, the powers are slowly being devolved upon the panchayats.
There are couple of stats that I'd like to share with you. See, what happens is that if you see the Kerala government, interestingly, the Kerala government allots 40% of its budget to local bodies without any questions. As soon as the budget is done, 40% of the state's finances go straight to local bodies to spend. That is one interesting and a good example. Secondly, if you see Karnataka has devolved all 29 powers to panchayats as mandated completely. Interestingly, Bihar, Pondicherry and Goa were 3 states which had not given any of the 29 powers to its panchayats. Bihar and Pondicherry have rectified it. Goa just remains. So don't you think that it is a matter of regret and probably shame that Goa is languishing behind as far as devolution of powers is concerned?
No, I won't say that. Say with all due respect to the 73rd amendment to the constitution. Government of Goa, irrespective of all the parties, in fact has been cooperating all the panchayats throughout. Now the devolution of powers is concerned, as I said it in the earlier segment also. Considering Goa as a state, see Goa is a very small state. Now therein, every government which comes to power, they try to devolve the powers to every panchayat. Now slowly it has been happening. So therefore, I won't say that this is not happening in our state. So whether it's Bihar or Pondicherry or whichever the state it is. Now, since it has been happening in all these states, definitely so far as Goa is concerned, definitely the government in power or otherwise all the whichever the government is in power, they will definitely devolve the powers to the panchayats.
Yeah, but it's not been done. So do you agree that this should be a priority that should be?
Yeah, it should be a priority, and I think it should happen, and it will happen.
Okay, so see, this is one aspect. The other issue because since we need to go, I'm just running through the questions with you. 2 quick things. I want to talk about corruption and I want to talk about the role of the Gram Sabha. See, the issue is that if you see Goa is one state where where our Gram Sabhas are extremely active. People are passionate about getting into Gram Sabhas. Gram Sabhas pass several resolutions. A lot of those resolutions don't ultimately see they see the light of day, but the desired impact of the resolutions may not happen all the time. I mean, in the sense that if you look at so many resolutions passed by so many panchayats against double tracking, but ultimately double tracking has not stopped. Though the issue is that some impact has also happened. The Supreme Court has taken cognizance of it and so on and so forth. But the point is, what can we do further to ensure that Gram Sabha resolutions and Gram Sabha mandates and the will of the people is reflected or taken up by the political dispensation so that the voice of the people is completely heard? Or is the other argument also true that the ruling dispensation also feels that sometimes the Gram Sabhas are politically motivated and they become a hindrance to development projects? See, that is also a narrative that the government seems to be saying, that at times Gram Sabha resolutions are politically influenced. Gram Sabhas are against development. So if you look at both these 2 options, one is how do we strengthen the Gram Sabhas, and secondly, how do we dispel this, I won't say a notion, I would even go to the extent of saying fact also to a large extent, where Gram Sabha and the people are seen as hindrances to development.
No, they are not being seen as hindrances. In my opinion, see, there are Gram Panchayats, there are Gram Sabhas wherein the people take a decision. Now, it is for the dispensation, government or whichever the power, for them to respect the Gram Sabha decision. But at the same time, the Gram Sabha decision is not binding. Am I right, Sorter? Right?
Decision
it's
is
binding.
It's binding. To what extent?
To the extent that it is within the
Within the rules.
Within the rules. Exactly. Within the regulation. Sometimes, say the tempers rise so high in the panchayat, sometimes in the Gram Sabhas. So therefore, sometimes the decisions are being taken at the panchayat level. And later on you realize that those decisions you are not effective, or otherwise you can't implement them. So then the government or other bureaucracy, they take a different view in the matter. Once that happens, then the Gram Sabha, the people who are participating in the Gram Sabhas, they feel, our voice is not been taken into consideration. But that's not the fact. Now, I being myself a lawyer, I have argued some matters wherein the Gram Sabha decision was pushed into and it was shown, no, this is the view of the Gram Sabha. But at the same time, if it is not, if it doesn't fit into the rules and the regulations or the act, then it will definitely it will not bind the government also.
Right.
But now
100% of Gram Sabha resolutions will not fall into this category. There will be many Gram Sabha resolutions which fall very much within the mandate of legality.
Yeah. No, but see, at the same time, there are some Gram Sabha decisions. I don't remember it, but wherein the wherein the Gram Sabha decisions have been respected by the bureaucracy or otherwise the government also. Government was made to respect that decision. So this has happened. So therefore, now illegalities, so far as the illegalities which you are talking about, illegalities, why only in panchayats? Everywhere. So there are illegalities, one should admit it, but at the same time, because of those illegalities, one doesn't want to, every Gram Sabha, one should not say that every panchayat member, he wants to do an illegality or otherwise he wants to regularize the irregularity. That's not the case. So the case is that there are issues wherein the people have concern about some illegalities happening in the panchayat.
Right.
Now, either they should be regularized or otherwise they should be rectified or otherwise the action should be taken in those cases. So this has been happening. This has been happening in many of the panchayats. So I will not say that the Gram Sabha decisions or the decisions of the panchayats are not being respected or they are not being adhered to by the government. This is what I would like to say.
Okay, just one quick question before I let you go. And I have to look into the whole aspect of corruption. See, what happens is when people talk about Goa, unfortunately, every builder or every contractor or every mega project person, they are now factoring in bribes to be paid to panchayats as part of their project costs. It is very clear that if you have to get this thing cleared, this is the amount that has to be paid to the panchayat. This is the fixed rate for NOCs. And it is so rampant that we are not even talking about this behind closed doors. It is absolutely open and it's right in the open. My issue is, now obviously this kind of corruption cannot happen unless this corruption is either blessed or tacitly approved by the powers that be. And it could be anybody. It can happen under I'm not saying, the people in the Congress were saints. I'm saying that across all political parties, this corruption of the panchayats has happened in such a way that the panchayat system in Goa itself has got a bad name. So what happens is that people are actually contesting panchayat elections to make money. If you see the richness in the in some of the panchayats in Goa, you'll be appalled. You have panchayats and sarpanchas who are buying Audi cars, who are buying Mercedes cars. Where does this wealth come from overnight?
No, sorry, I won't say that because these panchas, they contest the elections to make money. I won't say that because there are panchas. See, because if suppose every exception doesn't prove the rule. Yeah. There are panchas. Now, Mohandas himself was a panchayat member. He himself was a sarpanch.
But he is the exception.
No, he is an exception. But at the same time, I would say there are many people like him, wherein they participate. Now, see, the people who are elected for 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, are they elected because they want to make money? No, because those people, they have faith and trust in those their representatives. So therefore, see, I won't say, because in some cases, even you come across the situations wherein they say that no, because this project has been stalled because so and so X person has not been, whatever it is. But this is not the case in every panchayat. There are people who are good and who really want to work hard for the development of their panchayat. So therefore, that I have seen the panchayats. I can name some panchayats also, wherein they still cycle gyan bauta mare azun. Asa. So.
If I could just sing on this. See, wherever real estate boom is there, those panchayats are finished. Now you may talk about
that is difficult to disagree with this.
Kano and all those areas. Yes, there are very good sarpanches who are still cycling and all. They are down to us. Correct. Their situation will come. But the entire coastal belt where real estate is boom is there. There I think you cannot defend that there is no corruption. In fact, the whole panchayats are formed basically on that basis only.
That it is up to them. It is their wisdom, in fact, how they elect the people. And
it doesn't match the assets of the. I have seen people who are paupers. Assets. You will know, Savaikar Bab. People who are paupers. Okay, after just one term as sarpanch. Okay, they are some. Just the opposite. So how that money came,
Okay, I'll take.
Okay, Ramam, thank you so much for being a part of this debate. I just wish that you could have continued a little longer, but never mind. Next time.
There is always next time.
Yeah, but thank you for all your views and the facts that you presented, and we'll carry on discussing more points.
Thank you.
Kalan Bab, the thing is, I will just kind of revisit some of the points I was just raising with him. One is the issue of Gram Sabhas. Now, what Naren Savaikar was saying was that Gram Sabha resolutions are fine, but if they are in conflict with legality and legal system and the constitution, they cannot be. But the issue is, if you look at the whole agitation against, say, double tracking, for instance, there are panchayats after panchayats after panchayats went out of the way to say that there's going to be no double tracking. Now, and a lot of panchayats that were not involved with double tracking, were outside the double tracking zone, also said this. Now, the issue is, in this particular case, where do you see the illegality or conflict with the system coming? My point is, just because a project has been approved, it is well within the rights of the people saying, but this project is going to be harmful for us. Now, here it's a question of people's rights. It's not necessarily the question of whether it is mandated. In the sense, any project passed by the government cannot ultimately become etched in stone that cannot be protested against.
Well, at least I remember two instances.
Yes.
Which Goa may also be remembering or may remember.
Sure.
One, Mohandas Bab might be knowing.
Yes.
That government wanted to displace 5 wardas
Yes.
of Khotigaon due
Yes.
to wildlife sanctuary.
Yes.
Still, they have not decided about 1 or 2 wardas. And the Gram Sabha, not once, I think twice or thrice, took unanimous decision against the displacement of the people from 5 wardas of Khotigaon.
Right.
Forget about accepting the Gram Sabha decision. State government even did not bother to acknowledge the resolution passed by the Gram Sabha.
Right.
So this is what? Violation of law or violation of the people's aspiration or people's demand.
But Sota, isn't there a rule which protects? I'll come
No,
back to
no.
it. Just
See,
quickly.
I like to this thing. You talked about the railway tracking and all. Okay, that's where the whole thing is. Merely passing resolutions in the Gram Sabha are not. This is the whole matter of law. Once the 73rd Amendment came into force, Article 243N said all all laws which are in existence must be brought in consonance, okay, with the 73rd Amendment. So you have various laws. Okay. Now many panchayats are involved in the biodiversity.
That's true. That's true.
I have, in my panchayat, I have brought objection to it. I asked the biodiversity people, okay, under which law you are making this biodiversity act. It is made under the biodiversity act, not under the panchayat act. It is not reflected in my act. Okay. Tomorrow, the biodiversity board, after me slogging and putting everything, the biodiversity board will decide how they have to clear that depending on the central government pressures or whatever it is. They will not come back to the panchayat, And if you see the aims and objectives of that biodiversity whole exercise, it is basically to see that these certain indigenous species are not exploited by the industry, so that government gets revenue. It is not for protecting people's environment. So I question that motive, and they could not answer. No, this is the act. So I'm not ready to be a puppet in your this thing to make an act for you.
Also, since you mentioned
so
this,
same thing comes for railways and everything.
See, every panchayat needs to, every biodiversity board or biodiversity committee has to have a biodiversity register
Yes.
for the particular village. And that biodiversity register is not possible without the help of the local people and the panchayats. It's very important.
But it is not under the
and it
Panchayat
should
Act.
be. I agree. So, but what happens is then there needs to be the synergy. The synergy does not happen, and conflicts happen because there is no synergy.
So unless
Yes.
in the Biodiversity Act it is said that the decision of the local panchayats will be binding on the board. Okay. Same thing in TCP.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
There is no
It's a
acknowledgement
very important
of the,
point. I'll ask
of
both of you. This is a
Take
very important
example
point.
of garbage.
Yes.
Yeah.
About this Baigani garbage near Old Goa. The Old Goa Gram Sabha has decided many times
Yes.
against the garbage, and still you are imposing on them.
But my objection is
Yes.
हांव सांगता
Yes,
कसं
yes.
जाता
Sure.
एवरी वाडा विलेजीचो आतां म्हाका दिसता कितें जे गार्बेज आय विल टेक गार्बेज जी आसा ती प्रत्येक पंचायतीन आपापल्या हातूंकूच हें करपा जाय ती दुसरी पंचायती व्हरून उडयतलो म्हणटा तें जावपा येना प्रत्येक वाड्या वयर मनीस दॅट इज अ से शिवाजी दुसऱ्याच्या घरांत जावपाचो आपल्या घरांत शिवाजी नाका लायक दीस बाय कचऱ्याचो जो प्रोजेक्ट आहा पळय तो दुसऱ्याच्या वार्डा वचून कर म्हाज्या वार्डाक नाका तें जावंक शकना प्रत्येक सिटीजनान एक ठरवप आतां आमच्या लोलये पंचायतीक एक कंपाउंड केल्लो आहा जे प्लास्टीक व्हरून उडय म्हण प्रत्येक विलेजर थंय व्हरून उडोवपासून स्कुटरीन वतलो असो वाटेर उडयतलो आनी ताका आपल्या घरा कडेन नाका सेकंडली पयली गार्बेजीचो प्रॉब्लेम नाशिल्लो पळय प्लास्टीक येतकीर गार्बेजी प्रॉब्लेम जाला बट अदरवायज सांगता फीश जेन्ना साफ करता आमी नुस्तें जेन्ना निवळ करतात आमगेले अजून आमच्या घरान आमी ते माडा मुळा किंवा हातूंत पुरतात आतां कोण करना आतां तो कितें करता ज्या प्लास्टीक पिशवीन जें हाडटा तें घालता आनी तो त्या नाल्यांत उडयता बरोबर सो गार्बेजीचो प्रॉब्लेम जो थोडे कडेन जे अपोज करता पळय तो अपोज जावपाक जायना न्ही तुजी एरियेंतलो गार्बेज आहा ती तुवें सॉल्व करपाची तुवें वॉट एवर
मेक इट लोकल
मेक इट लोकल
सुजय
तू गार्बेजच नाका गार्बेजीचो प्रोजेक्टच नाका अशें म्हणपाक जाय
two things. I think one thing Mohandas, जो तो म्हणटा
ना वांयगणीच हांव सांगना बट अदरवायज सुद्दां हांवें सो मेनी पंचायत
yes
पळयलो ऑब्जर्व केला की कचऱ्याचो प्रॉब्लेम हेच नाका आमचे कडेन
See,
कचरो
one thing, this is what I've been also having a conflict with the TCP.
Right.
Okay. The TCP decides under its ODPs and under its regional plan, okay, which areas should be settlement, which should be commercial.
Correct.
Okay. It's not bothered to see the carrying capacity of the village. Whether there will be garbage generated and how that garbage, what will be the capacity of the panchayat.
Water table of the village also.
I am offended by the court's decision that it is bringing contempt against the sarpanch and the panchayat, okay, and not against the TCP for approving these sort of projects in a village panchayat. Today it is putting the onus and as usual these panchayats also don't apply their mind to tell the court that I am helpless when it comes to construction. I cannot refuse. Okay, now you're putting the burden on me. Okay, when I was not the cause for this.
See, one important aspect that viewers must know, and then I'll get back to the panelists, is, see, what really happens here is that the panchayat system should be fundamental to all decision making in every village. What has now happened is that every law under the book which is being mandated and which is controlled by either the state government or the central government has usurped the rights of the panchayats in such a manner that all new laws and acts do not have the mandatory reference point where a panchayat body has to be taken into confidence. And we've seen this, and the shocking irony is that when you have a major ports authority which completely becomes a state within a state, they even go to the extent of putting it in one of their sections that if there is a conflict between the local authority and the MPA, the final word and the will of the MPA is going to be going to prevail over a local authority. I think that's one of the biggest insults to the 73rd Amendment and local self-government. What the Major Ports Authority Act has actually done is a slap on the face of local self-government. I just had to make this point to re-emphasize what most of you have been saying. I'll go to Kalan Baba. I had interrupted you in your last point. Please carry on.
No, I was giving examples that how the Gram Sabha decisions are undermined.
Yes.
It may not be as per the total tune of the existing law.
Right.
But nothing stopping the state authority to go and sit with the Gram Sabha people, understand their grievances, understand their point, and have a negotiation.
Right.
You are just neglecting and imposing.
Right.
That imposition by the state or by the union, by the center, that create distrust and conflict. That should not happen. And when we think about the panchayat, see the panchayat voters quality within the Goa is a much different than the panchayat quality in many other bigger states.
That's right.
And therefore the Goans voters are very sensitive about their vado, their resources, their culture, and this is good thing. And therefore the Gram Sabha is considered as their institutions where they should reflect their every aspiration. When 73rd Amendment was still in discussion, state government was supposed to adopt it. They took a lot of time in Goa to adopt it. That time Peaceful Society organized a series of consultations.
Right.
And we were suggesting that planning process must start from the panchayat.
Right.
Because the panchayat is the institution of local self-governance.
Right.
Panchayat is not the institution of implementing the state and the union's program. So when you take 186 or 191 panchayat as a unit of planning from the bottom, then you are eliminating all the possible chances of conflict and deprivation of the resources. Let's take the panchayat level planning and club it and make it a taluka level planning. And from taluka, you make that taluka planning should be the state planning. That is not happening. Unless see, the Goa is a very well knitted society and very aware society about do's and don'ts. Therefore, panchayats here play a bigger role. So the planning process must begin from there. You see, in a state like Goa, small state, we all say 3,752 square kilometer. Once upon a time had a 5 lakhs population. Today you have a don't know how much population, because it has become
just floating as well.
Yeah, it has become a second house of all the metro people. So what will happen with the native culture, native population, their aspiration, their safety? That is hounding the mind of Goa.
See, one of the reasons, and we talk about corruption, but I think if you go deep into the corruption angle, one of the reasons why corruption is happening is also because the demographics of our villages is changing. And the power equations are also changing. I mean, if you have people from different parts of the country coming with different kind of resources and richness and the capacity to buy, not just land, but buy power. Buy power and buy influence. The whole dynamics of our village society is changing, which I don't think, very few people have understood and studied it seriously.
Until the Gulf boom had taken place, Goa was peaceful. Moment the Gulf money came in here,
right?
Okay, corruption started.
Right.
In the sense, I know, because Gulfies used to come here for say 15-20 days, okay, and they needed one certificate.
Right.
So for them in dirhams, 5 rupees was nothing.
Right.
In the panchayat system, if you gave one cup of chai to the talati or the sarpanch, he was more than happy. When you meet him.
Right.
So take 50 rupees and throw on the talati. I want it fast. So that fellow came to know, okay, these Gulfies have money. Okay.
Right.
So every Gulfie who comes, then afterwards started. So slowly, then came the builders. Builders, they are already factoring in.
As I mentioned, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That I will bribe.
Right.
Okay. And in fact, see, I have been very ruthless on builders when I was the panchayat member. Okay. So they have been trying to bribe me also, But in fact, the corruption was such that other people said, don't go to him, he'll throw you out, So you give me the money, I will pass it to him. See, this is the extent of corruption started taking place using my fear.
Right.
Okay. And I don't know about it until some builder's friend told me, see, people are taking money in your name, So this is the problem.
Also, size of the project. When Nylon 66 project, you might be remembering,
of course, yes.
was coming. What was one of the argument? One argument was a project of 400 crore rupees of that time coming to a village area means they will wipe out the entire local self-reliance or local authority. If you see here in Goa, when we know that it's a small state, very fragile economically, culturally, environmentally, you are bringing projects of 1,000 crores and plus. That is also influencing the quality of politics in Goa. In fact, these mega projects are determining the politics of Goa, and therefore the whole objective direction of the politics in Goa is not the Goa-centric or Goan-centric. It has become the money-centric, and that is the biggest conflict which the Goan society is facing today.
Yeah.
Right.
And secondly, those who cannot go abroad and those who cannot become MLAs.
Yes.
So MLAs also are spending a lot of money. So once they get into panchayat, they are using this.
That is the genesis.
And secondly, कशें की गोंयाक हे बूम इतले जाला हाज्या हावजिंग. गोवा गव्हर्मेंटा कडेन एक प्लॅन ना की बाबा आमकां कितले हावजिंग जाय, कितले लोकांक घर ना आनी कितले लोकांक घर जाय आनी which class, करोडसाची घर जाय का 20 लाखाची घर जाय,
affordability. Because what is happening is the ministers and MLAs are thinking of these projects
आणि
and passing
प्रत्येक जो
them
TCP
as per their own
मिनिस्टर त्या
needs.
देखून गव्हर्मेंट सुद्धा पडली TCP लागून गव्हर्मेंट पडटा बिकॉज ऑफ TCP इज अ मोर हे आणि प्रत्येक मिनिस्टर जो TCP जाता पळय तो आपल्या जाय तशे कायदे करता. सो पंचायती कडच्यान एक हें उरपा जाय की ह्या पंचायतीक हो मोठो प्रोजेक्ट येतलो काय ना आनी तो सस्टेन जातलो काय ना. एक समज 6,000 वोटर्साच्या किंवा 6,000 पॉप्युलेशनाच्या हातूंक एक 10,000 लोक येवपा सारको जर प्रोजेक्ट आसा तो सर्टन डेमोग्राफी सगळी चेंज जाली न्ही. सो तो जाय काय ना हे पंचायतीक विचारपा जाय.
That is the reason. Then there was a time when health and education,
Yeah.
environment, these two used to be important departments. With
No,
people.
the Sangha issue now.
The issue is
IIT.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
The MLA saying 1,500 people agreed. Who are these people? They are nobody. They don't have a livelihood. Who are these 1,500 people? And who have agreed?
Yes.
See,
Right.
basically, they are raising certain issues.
Absolutely, correct. Yes,
These laws cannot be based on numbers, and truth cannot be established by numbers. A mob. So you tell them, okay, let us discuss whether if their issues are genuine. Okay.
There has to be a
accept it.
conversation.
Even
Consensus,
Yeah, there should be, yeah.
in
consensus is the
democracy,
spirit.
Conversation
the
should
opinion
be
of
there.
a single people is also important.
Our comunidades function by consensus. Today, comunidades also have become corrupt. You see, wherever this real estate has come. So,
No, what is interesting about this IIT issue, what I don't understand is, you move out of Sattari, Melauli village, because ultimately people's will prevails. Because large amount of cashew farms and people would lose their cashew plantations and large tracts of land. If you are moving out of one area based on people's will, how can you go to another area and do the same thing and justify it? That's my point. The issue is not whether IIT should come or not come. The issue is that have IIT in a land which does not display so much.
now, and you tell me, they are talking about employment.
Yeah.
Okay. The wages and the pay scale, okay, that we get in Goa, in the present industry, can you compare it to the metros? Like Bangalore and all?
Yeah,
And naturally, people are going to go outside.
Go.
Our youth are going to go. Who doesn't want more money?
Because you brought the issue of IIT and Sanghe. I'm bringing the issue of what is the Sanghe's environmental properties for Goa. Sanghe is basically watershed for the entire Goa.
Right.
And in the name of project, any project, if you are destroying the watershed of Goa, it means you are going to deprive tomorrow's Goa in having water and the better
Right.
ecological
Water
life.
sufficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, we really running out of time. A couple of quick points before we conclude. One, of course, is this whole issue of a quick point on rampant urbanization of Goa, which is essentially destroying our panchayat and village life. The involvement of ODPs and the Planning Development Authority into rural areas, which has actually impacted panchayats in a big way. Quick word from each one of you.
You see, in Kokni there is a line, Amcho Goi, Bhangracho Goi. And since late 80s, I was saying that Amcho Goi, Fatracho Goi jata. And आज Amcho Goi, Fatracho Goi jalle asa. If we want to prevent it, let's rediscuss about the whole direction of politics and the development of Goa. That's my suggestion.
जे प्रोजेक्ट येतात ते पंचायतीक थोरो डिस्कस जावपाकच जाय सगळे ऑफिसरांनी आनी पंचायतीक जे ग्रामसभेक किंवा बाकीचे कडेन जाता ताजो जो पर्यंत गव्हर्मेंट कन्सिडर करचो ना थंय युगो उरपा जायना विचवर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीचे एफिलिएशन उरूं तांणी गव्हर्मेंटान ठरोवपाक जाय की पंचायत कितें सांगता तें आयकुपाक आनी ताजे नंतर जो डिसिजन जातलो तो डिसिजन घेवन पंचायत मुखार हें वचपाक जाय अदरवायज पंचायतीक जर इग्नोर करून जर सगळीं वता कित्याक पंचायतीच्या लोकांकच खबर उरता की थंय कितें कितें जाय म्हणटा तें गांवच्या लोकांक आनी गांवच्या लोकांक कितें जाय तें थंय येवपाक जाय
So before
In
you
my-
say your last words, I just want one question also. I want to throw it in. Should people also introspect in the sense that if panchayats have become completely corrupt, completely devoid of any value and soul, and don't you think people themselves also have to be blamed, because this whole ills of money power, taking money to vote, has also crept into to panchayat elections, and this power game will never end unless people themselves don't
Very
change.
much.
Very
People
much.
are at the crux of all the defections and all the breaking of panchayats and because people are not bothered on principle. Amchi kama jaung jai. Early morning you go to the MLA's door or you go to the Sarpanch's door. People are waiting for sponsor for cricket match, sponsor for this. Now from where are these politicians going to give their money if they don't rob people only?
Yes.
You know.
स्पॉन्सर फॉर गणेश फेस्टिवल
Yeah.
स्पॉन्सर फॉर
And unless the
क्रिसमस
district development plans come into force, which envisage all this thing, whether it's CZMP, whether it's ports, whether it is TCP rules, irrigation projects,
That will encompass everything.
that should completely come. So and it should be discussed with the people and passed. So 2 district development plan, not regional plan for Goa. South Goa and North Goa district development plan, which encompasses municipality, panchayat, and all the state government
And all
projects.
planning and projects, all
state
departments will
government.
come under
Yes.
the use of that. Okay, we'll have to conclude because we are running out of time, and we have actually run out of time hugely, and we've overshot. But nevertheless, I think this has been an absolutely riveting debate, and there are a few takeaways that I think we would like to place on record. The first being that the panchayat system and the system of local self-government is a beautiful, beautiful system. It basically gives power to the powerless. It allows the smallest person in the ladder a chance to take a decision for their and their children's future. That dream lies shattered as we speak today, because ultimately our panchayats have become the replica of a larger diseased political system, where the same ills and the same I would say tragedies, as it were, are coming into play, where instead of having a proper 73rd Amendment, we have seen a bastardization of the spirit of the 73rd Amendment, which ultimately breaks our hearts. Though of course efforts are being made, and even Naren Savarkar ji had said that, look, we need to introspect and look into various issues, but a lot still remains to be done. But I think a beginning will be made due to two things happening. One is people themselves have to be less corrupt, and secondly, MLAs should realize that their power need not extend and should not be underlined by the dominance that they have over panchayat bodies. Once that happens, maybe we can see some light. And last but not the least, do not change Goa to such a way, to such an extent, that Goa begins to look like an absolute concrete jungle where there is nothing of village life. And if there is nothing of village life, then the relevance of panchayats will be gone forever. And let us hope that Goa does not get to that stage. I thank all my panelists for their riveting discussions and points, and we hope a little bit of this passes through, even if it's a drop in the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you.